Welcome back to another episode of A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci. I'm Vincent Lanci, speaker, coach, and author of the book Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption.
And I'm Mike Belliveau. I am a survivor of 9 brain surgeries, 30 treatments of radiation, and brain injury. And I'm here to talk about mental health with you with Vincent Lanci.
Mike, you inspire me every day. When I was 21 years old, I was the victim of a hit-and-run accident while walking home from a friend's birthday. After coming out of a coma and suffering from a traumatic brain injury, or you may know of it as TBI, I soon realized that it was time to put my mental health on a very high pedestal. This transformative experience has led me to create a podcast that is all things mental health. To add value to your life, to hear mental health professionals and advocates share their authentic stories related to mental health? If you answered yes, you came to the right place. I want to start by congratulating you for making your mental health a priority. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate the show 5 stars and continue listening by subscribing. Welcome to the first episode of COVID Talks. I will now begin to bring back some previous guests to reconnect with you all. These guests will highlight their experiences during the COVID-19 lockdown to add immediate value to your lives. For this episode, I am happy to introduce my guest from the second episode ever on this platform, Mike Belliveau. Mike is in my TGH family and connected with him as we were both traumatic brain injury survivors. Belliveau is also a brain cancer survivor. The amount of surgeries this man has endured would cause most to give up, but not Mike. He's a strong man and an even stronger role model for his son, Cube. He embodies the never give up lifestyle, and his advice for you today will make an immediate impact on your life. Allow me to now introduce Mike Belliveau. Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you, Vincent. A couple months since we spoke last, but I'm happy that you're having me on your mental health talk about COVID, because I would definitely like to add as much as I can about that.
Well, I'm happy you joined us again. I knew we had to catch up, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to do so. Would you mind please reintroducing yourselves to our listeners and previewing your story a bit before we dive in and get going? Also, please do share your role related to mental health.
Absolutely. My name is Mike Belliveau. I am a brain injury and brain cancer survivor. I went through 9 brain surgeries and 30 treatments of radiation therapy in order to put brain cancer into remission. I've actually been in remission 5 years as of last month, which is pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
So, as far as mental health goes, I've dealt with all kinds of things, whether it be anxiety, depression. It's something we all have to go through, and I just hope to share how I coped with everything.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you for sharing that intro. On each episode with a new guest, as you know, my guest and I go through a series of 6 questions called the main event. But for COVID Talks episodes, we will have a main event on its own. You ready to go, Mike?
Let's do it.
Great. So let's just begin the show with how your mental health was affected from the 2020 pandemic.
Like everybody else, it's been extraordinarily taxing. It's been depressing, and it's been anxiety-inducing, for sure. We went from a time where we were able to live our lives normally to now where everything's closed down. Things are only opened in limited areas. You have to wear a mask. You have to make sure that you don't catch COVID. Constantly, you feel the anxiety of, oh my God, I'm going to catch COVID. Oh my God, I'm going to catch COVID.
Yeah, you couldn't be more right. Paranoia is contagious as well. As you're saying, everybody just thinks COVID's everywhere. So that's a great segue into asking you, Mike, what would you say the most difficult part of all of these challenges of 2020 pandemic are for you?
I don't know. I don't know if the biggest challenge is not talking to people in the normal matter, or if it's I got to stop myself from eating food.
Sitting around the house all day.
Yeah, sit around the house all day and eat. I mean, food is comforting. And when you're home and you've got nothing to do, it's really easy to eat.
What's your go-to home-cooked meal, Mike?
Oh, go-to home-cooked meal? That would be zuppa discana.
How do you cook it? Let's talk about it.
It's a soup that, I don't know if you had it. It's got sausage and kale and potatoes, bacon, all kinds of
Sounds great, actually. I haven't had it.
Well, you have to look it up. It's actually an easy recipe.
But now let's get into, Mike, what are some ways you've been coping with the additional change and stress from the 2020 pandemic?
Well, I have lots of ways of coping. One of my main ways of coping is actually pretty interesting because right now I'm talking to you on Zoom. There's other applications out there. For instance, there's an app that I use called Meet Me, and I do live streaming. I actually live stream like almost every day, and I meet people, I talk to people, and it's a nice, because even though we can't have face-to-face interactions, it's nice being able to see other people. Like, for instance, you right now, you and me, we're talking face-to-face, and
yes,
it feels like almost like a real meeting, you know?
That's what I really enjoy about Zoom. It creates that organic feel as if we are in the same room. But there's obviously been a lot of negatives with COVID. Mike, we can all agree on that. What are some positives that you ended up having out of this whole pandemic?
Oh, some positives? I could definitely think of a few. It's helped me with streaming. I got bored and I started live streaming, and I've actually developed quite a following. I have almost 3,000 followers, and it's
Nice.
fun.
Yeah, that's quite a number.
Met some really great friends, and these people I'm able to talk to every day, and I actually met a pretty amazing woman too.
Oh, that's great, Mike. So what are we live streaming about?
It's basically whatever I feel like talking about for that day, but on Sundays I have Science Sundays, and I try to talk about different physics principles and science principles and present them in a easy to understand format.
I love that. You're definitely spreading knowledge always in a positive way. I love that about you. But now let's describe how your work life was affected by the 2020 pandemic. Let's start right in the beginning of the pandemic in March, and we'll grow back towards more present time.
Well, as you know, I'm disabled. I'm on disability, so I do not work. But that is not to say that it didn't affect everybody around me. For instance, I have a house, but I also have my brothers that live here, and they were both laid off. So that required me to pick up more of the burden. But it's okay because, you know what? You get through it. It's all about meeting people.
But Mike, I know you're always working on something. I know you're on disability, but I know you always have projects. You have something positive you're working on, and now you're growing a quick following of 3,000 people over the pandemic. You know, you're definitely impacting their lives. But Mike, we all have children in our lives, whether it be our own siblings, cousins, or friends. What advice do you have for everybody listening on to help the children in their lives handle the additional difficulties of their children's mental health?
Well, I think that homeschooling has been a big advantage. I get to teach my son, and at the same time, he's learning. The thing about kids is their brains are like sponges. They just want to absorb all that information. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but I like to talk and I like to explain things. And I like to delve into different physical principles, and my son learns as a result of it. So I think home definitely one. And for the times when I just want to chill, it's like, oh, go play video games.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. I know the listeners will see all the value in your episode today. You talked about it from the heart, exactly what was going on, and I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. I love the positivity that came out of the pandemic. You found a new hobby. You found a new outlet. You found great friends and a girl, all by streaming, and who knows where it's going to take you. But it is time for the last word, Mike. And I do this on my other podcast series, What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur, as well, because I want the listeners to really get to know the guests I bring on. Is there something that you would like to share that we did not touch on yet today?
Yeah, I would like to talk on a couple things. I know that I am a brain injury survivor. You're a brain injury survivor. And one of the big things that is very important to me is helmet usage. There are so many people that do not wear helmets. We have a big problem with kids getting brain injuries and suffering bad brain injuries from bicycle accidents.
Yeah.
Very preventable. So what I like is I have an organization that I'm working on, which is going to be funding helmets for children and hopefully preventing some of these brain injuries, because it's just not a good thing. I've been through a brain injury. You've been through brain injury, and it's hard.
Mike, that's very admirable, and I can't wait to see where that goes. Please keep me in the loop for that to help get the word out, because that's outstanding. Would you mind now please sharing your social media, website, or ways for our listeners to follow your endeavors, potentially your stream as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Follow me at Mike F. Bell. That's Mike F. Bell on Instagram. You could also follow me on Meet Me. That's the streaming service that I was talking about. I live stream. You'll find me, Mike F. Bell.
You stream on Meet Me at Mike F. Bell. Thank you for sharing that. And your Instagram is at Mike F. Bell. And be sure to check out his social media and content. And now it is social media time for the show, and we're on whichever platform you like to use. We're at A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci on LinkedIn, at A Mental Health Break on Instagram and Facebook, and over on Twitter, we're Podcast by Lanci, so you get updates from this show and what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. Of course, my handles are at Vincent A. Lanci on all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalanci.com. If you check out my books, DM me. I'd love to hear from you. We have Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and How to Transform Your Mindset When the Norm is Changed. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please do continue listening and rate A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci 5 stars. I work hard to find value delivering guests for you on each episode. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all on the next episode of A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci.